Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss what pressures will be on the new Conservative leader in trying to keep the party together as they transition towards a general election campaign in 2 years' time. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I've talked a lot about the issues for the Conservative Party now that they're having to choose another leader, and we'll do so much more this week. Inevitably, it's all people seem to be interested in. I recently said that this leadership contest will be bitterly fought, but that the Conservative Party, is very good at uniting behind the leader once the general election is on their minds. But the contest is so incredibly bitter. Before it's even formally begun, remember, the new 1922 Executive Committee, the voting closes today. They haven't even set the rules for the contest yet. And this is already the dirtiest leadership campaign for any party that I can remember. Various interested parties within the Conservative Party are leaking very, very damaging details of leadership candidates that they want to stop in order to control the direction of their post-Johnson future of the party. The problem is that it'll just add more pressure onto the eventual winner in keeping the party united. Because politics can change, and you can't say it's impossible for the Conservatives to actually remain divided after the leadership contest is over. It would not be in any of their interests, and it would be against their usual practice, but you can't rule it out. So what are the pressures on party unity that will remain once the dust settles on the transition? Well, first, there's going to be bad blood. There have been some very damaging leaks about Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Nadhim Zahawi so far, in terms of the major ones. Obviously, Johnson isn't going to remain leader, but more damaging scandals still hurt the Conservative brand. After all, Labour will continue to ask why Tory MPs backed him for so long after his unsuitability for high office became clear to the public. But let's say Rishi Sunak wins the leadership contest and he still remains the favourite or one of the top favourites. I'm thinking it's hard to believe, but let's just say he will have a fair few enemies in the Conservative Party who will not be minded to stand behind him, other than to stab him in the back, of course. And the damaging briefings against him will weaken his government as they head towards the general election, because Labour should ruthlessly exploit them. In addition, you should see the way far-right commentators regard him. It is very likely that various right-wing media outlets will give Sunak as Prime Minister a very rough ride. Johnson was used to getting a very soft treatment from the media. It helped con the public that he was doing all right when almost all aspects of his government have been a disaster. If Sunak gets some actual scrutiny from outlets read or watched by Conservative swing voters, the party itself will struggle. If Zahawi wins, the Tories will have abandoned any notion of burying accusations of Tory sleaze. But I do think that's extremely unlikely now. But the other thing is, even if these people don't win, Zahawi, Sunak, if they don't win, but they stay on in the Conservative Party or the Parliamentary Party, they don't step down as MPs, there'll be a lot of bad blood. They will feel that they've been briefed against, and that's why they didn't win. So there could be an awful lot of unpleasantness in the Tory party afterwards. Second pressure is Brexit, of course. The fact of the matter is that the only plan for Brexit that they ever had was for making it happen and in the hardest terms they could get away with. There's never been a plan for actually getting Brexit to coexist with the real world. Brexit has been done in as far as the public are concerned, but in any real sense, it hasn't, and it won't be. We haven't set up our post-Brexit trade borders. So smuggling is rife, and we're losing a fortune in import duties, as well as risking importing serious animal infections. It's not even like we have the roadmap to completing Brexit, and it's just taken a long time to implement because the Tories are lazy and useless. We don't even have the Brexit deal that everyone thinks we do. The Tories are hell-bent on tearing up the withdrawal agreement, and the trade and cooperation agreement was only ever a short-term deal. How many people realise that? It's up for renegotiation again in 2026. And if we haven't committed to the Northern Ireland Protocol before then, there won't be any negotiations. Don't worry about that, because there won't be a trade and cooperation agreement. And if we have committed, there'll still be negotiations for that trade deal in 2026 having to start all over again. And they really don't know what to do about the protocol. Like Tom Tugendhat, he's the sane one in this contest. Hopeless, but sane. He said he'd keep the the protocol bill, because why not? We might need it for negotiation leverage. But he says he wants to build a relationship of trust with the EU. Well, there's two things here. First, the EU consider the bill to be a very serious breach of trust. They're not going to negotiate with what they consider to be a gun against their head. Second, note how he's suggesting having the bill pass into law but not actually use it just as a negotiating threat. This is literally the closest any Tory candidate can get to sanity. And what they're still saying they do is do the insane thing but not use it, maybe. What the Tories have given us is a never-ending Brexit because they don't actually know what to do with it. It reminds me of the first episode of Black Books. They're all trying to work out what this big metal ball is for. Nobody knows what Brexit's for or how to operate it, so they all just marvel at how shiny it looks while they kick the can down the road in the hope that someone will come up with a bright idea. They've been kicking that can down the road for 6 years now. But even a very long road comes to an end at some point. They may have to come to the conclusion they ain't got anyone very bright. The third pressure is the economy. Tories like to claim they are a low tax party. From the point of view of ordinary voters, it's not at all true. High tax, low growth, as Labour are saying. You pay less tax under Labour, you earn bigger pay increases. It's no mystery why this is. The economic data is clear enough. Labour governments give you lower inflation and higher growth. It's very easy to look up. But the Tories do like to talk about cutting taxes, and the new leader is going to have to do something. Different leadership hopefuls have different ideas about what to do with the economy, but it all comes down to some form of austerity. The notion that taking from the poor to give to the rich will somehow work out better for the poor, but in the long run. Doesn't matter which Tory you pick. The ones who say they'll cut taxes, the ones who say they'll keep them the same, the ones who say they will invest, the ones who say they will cut back investment. Doesn't matter. They're all labouring under the misapprehension that what's good for rich people eventually gives poor people some jam tomorrow. But, and I cannot stress this point enough, it's bollocks. So people will continue to feel the pain as this year rumbles on, and then next year, and then the year after. There's no horizon in sight, no light at the end of the tunnel, other than maybe a train coming the other way. Come the next election, and there's no need for the Tories to have it before January 2025, I remind you, the economy will not have improved. In fact, the best argument for a general election this year for the Tories is that they are likely to balls up the economy even worse if they wait. Better to lose the election by a bit than a lot. Fourth pressure is their crusade against human rights. Suella Braverman, the ERG candidate, has said she will pull the UK out of the European Convention on Human Rights. Of course, it's not as simple as that. But it's a clear policy for not only removing our human rights under the guise of taking it away from foreigners, because that's what they'll do. Your human rights are absolutely safe. We need to take away these human rights that these foreigners are abusing. Oh yeah, we'll go along with that. Before you know it, it's your human rights that have gone, not theirs. But they're going to be destroying our international standing even more. Also, the European Convention on Human Rights is a named and core foundation for the Good Friday Agreement. Having the UK simply withdraw is the polar opposite of simple. Frankly, people are talking about the fact we'll undermine the Good Friday Agreement if we do this. Yes, of course we will. But actually, before then, any attempt to even do it would tie the government in knots for years. Plenty long enough to boot them out ahead of the next general election. It's not just that it's an immoral thing to do, a terrible thing to do. It's not an even easy thing to do. I don't think Braverman's going to win the contest. But by being in it, what you can do as a candidate is force the eventual winner to have a policy on it. Because there'll be questions. What's your policy on this? Serious candidate number one. And so on. The Tories have convinced a lot of their support that it's now the European Convention on Human Rights that's to blame for what they call illegal immigration. Even though it was Britain who wrote it. But I thought it was the EU that was the problem. Well, yes, but it's this now as well, you see. We've got to do both. Basically, they're saying that Brexit wasn't enough. We need another Brexit to make the first Brexit work. This time it's exiting the Council of Europe. Now, I'd like to think that the eventual winner will be bright enough to steer clear of this discussion altogether. Yes, of course, they'll be asked questions. Simplicity itself to dodge them. They could reaffirm their commitment to human rights while saying that, of course, they will look at how to prevent them being abused by a foreign court. Not that it is a foreign court. Non-committal, and because you're talking about an inquiry of sorts, you can bat away questions all day long about the conclusions. If they say, yeah, but what would you do? Well, I would wait for the results of the inquiry. Yes, but what would you do? Well, I'll wait for the inquiry on that one. you know, but I'm sure the eventual winner will not be all that bright. They may well commit themselves to further insanity regarding our international standing, even though it will almost certainly be impossible to achieve. But that'll also risk biting them on the arse at the next election. Frankly, the last thing any serious candidate wants to do is to commit to any policies. As they're incapable of achieving any stated end results, the more policies they commit to, the longer the list opposition parties will have when it comes to asking the electorate, what did you actually get out of this? By 2025, like 14 and a half years of Tory rule, what did you actually get out of it then? And that is a problem in itself. No matter when the general election is, this year, 2025, doesn't matter, the Tories will have been in power for over a decade, maybe well over a decade. What have we got to show for it? To listen to the other leadership candidates talking about needing a clean start or a change in direction or a complete reset, you'd think they've only just come to power. Who was this terrible government that's caused all this damage that you need a complete reset on the country? But no, they've been in power for years. They've said for years that they need just a bit more time. Well, the more time they get, the more people expect them to achieve come the next election. The next leader of the party, you would think, is going to have to start coming up with some actual achievements to sell voters at that next election. All of these issues are not just major concerns for voters at the next election, but major stress points on the Conservative Party itself. If one group of Tories says they need a particular policy to have faith they'll win their seat, like red wall Tories and levelling up, but another group thinks it'll cost them theirs, like blue wall Tories don't want to pay the higher taxes for it, there will still be an almighty bust-up in the party, even once the contest is over and the new leader is installed. I am sure we'll see a honeymoon period while MPs wait to see which way they will jump, and the new leader, if they've got any brains, may avoid jumping in any direction for fear of the consequences, but they are going to have to move at some point. The infighting could then kick off again. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.